Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we're back here. We're in our new studio today. It's the Brown Sports Bag. And this is James Brown with John Butler. We're actually sitting down at the place where this show began some, 7 years ago? Can you believe?
Been a long time ago.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good.
It's all laid out. Chris Houchins has gotten us going here and all that jazz, and so we should be in pretty good shape. I think we got a lot to talk about because we do have an important couple of games at the back end of this week. And I believe, it's going to be – the boys' game is going to be critical, at least in terms of how the district standings are set up. And the girls' game, Barren County is kind of taking control, but we're going to start on the boys' side of things because the Trojans got a big win on Friday against Warren East, beat them 57-55. Furious end to the game. I mean, it was quite a game, John, and a lot of action, and it was a well-played game. Caleb Prince had his kind of usual game. Bratcher actually played pretty well against.
Bratcher had 26.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He played really well.
When Glasgow beat him 75-71, he actually did not have that great of a game. And so, but what Barren did was they found multiple people to get scores when they needed them.
Well, they played super in the last 4 minutes of the game.
Yes.
That's what it kind of came down to, that because Barren won. They shot 3 out of 15 from 3 and only 8 out of 19 from the free throw line. It's hard to win games, close games, when you shoot that poorly.
Yeah.
But more, did they make plays down the stretch? In particular, Cade Hardy and Jackson Reese, they made 2 together big-time plays in the last minute and a half. I think Barren, the first play that got Barren, I think, within 1 was an assist from Hardy to Reese in a half court.
Yeah.
I think that got them within 1, and then Hardy, and then I think Jackson Reese got the steal, and then made the assist back to Hardy,
right,
for the lead to put them up 1. And neither layup, they were both layups, but they were not real easy shots. They were kind of challenged, and they were both kind of reverse layups and so forth. But those 2 plays just in the last minute kind of set up for a spectacular ending to the game, in which Bratcher missed a 3, and then Barren went down, and I may have messed that up. I think the shot that Reese hit that Hardy put Barren up 3. Mm-hmm. The Reese shot put them up 1, and then they kind of hung on there at the end, but a big win for Barren, especially after losing at Warren East, about a month ago and so forth. And
in a game that was sort of like this one in the first half, because that game was tied 23-23, and then Warren East just ran over them in the third quarter. This time,
Barren's better than they were back in December.
You mentioned something early in the year when Jackson Reese was still out with the shoulder injury, and you thought he would make a big difference for them when he got back.
Does a lot of things well for him. I mean, he's kind of a glue player. He, he can make shots, but he's a really good defensive player. But what I like about him, he's smart.
Yeah,
he makes a lot of winning plays, whether it's defensively or offensively and so forth. And he's a player that I thought they really missed. Plus, just the timing and they went out to Las Vegas and played in that tournament, and they went 2-2. And all I can go by is just what the coaches told me, and they felt like they could have gone 3-1, maybe 4-0. They shot well certain games, other games they didn't shoot well, but they thought they played pretty well. But They needed that. It's a good win because they're 2-1. They've got wins against Allen and East and a loss against East. Mm-hmm. And so that was obviously a good win for them.
Yeah. And then, they're supposed to play Warren Central on Tuesday night. We'll see if that happens because the weather's – it's not supposed to get above freezing on Tuesday. And depending on, ice on the road, I think we already know Barron's out of school tomorrow. That does not affect whether or not you might play the game, being in school or out of school. But we'll see what it looks like, road conditions as the day goes along, because it's more about can everybody get to the game, the players. I mean, it's great if the fans can make it, but if you want to play the game, can the players get there?
If you can't, just listen to Jay.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. You just listen to Jay Turner. He's hanging out with us.
Or watch Jay.
Or watch Jay, yes. You can do that on the WCOUradio.com/Trojans-Sports. You can watch it there. And then you can listen to it online. You can listen to it on your radio. Listen to it on your phone. You can listen to it in Alaska if you want to.
There's a lot of ways.
It's not cold enough here for you. But, yeah, so, you know, that
and Barren goes to 6 and 7.
Yes.
And if you look at their, you know, obviously you'd rather be better than 6 and 7. But if you look at their losses, you know, Greene County is a top team. The Greene and LaRue are both in the top 20, top 25.
Yeah.
They both went to Lexington and played really well in Lexington and got some big wins against some big time opponents.
Yeah.
So those are two of their losses. Lost to a good Warren East team. I'm trying to think. That's three good teams they lost to. Lost to somebody else that was really good too.
South of Warren at the time.
South of Warren's got a good team and so forth. So their losses, they really hadn't lost anybody that you would think, hey, that's just a bad loss.
Right.
So they're gradually getting a little bit better. And we kind of thought they would start off slow this year with the football success and the football players that were playing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Glasgow Scotties, apparently they only win district games at this point. They struggle to win other games. I mean, I looked down their schedule. I think there are 4 other games on their schedule when I looked at they should have won this year. You look at the loss.
Well, first of all, they're 3-9.
Yeah.
And 2 of their wins, they're 2-0 in the district against Allen and against East.
Yeah. And you go down, you look at the beginning of their season, they lose to Greenwood in a game that, you know, if you're a Glasgow fan, you might feel like they got robbed a little bit in that game.
What I saw in the replay, boy, that was some strange calls. The technical, I don't know what happened to give somebody a technical that late in the game, too.
Yeah.
But, that's a tough one.
So then you look at that one, that's a game they could have won right out of the gate, and Greenwood's proven to be a really good team. They lost a game to Logan County. That's a game they should have won because they should be better than Logan. But it was, again, a game where they were up, and then the fourth quarter just went, not even fourth quarter, last few minutes went awry for them. They've had some other games during the Christmas tournaments and all that they lost. So, I mean, they are a 3-win team, but they are, I would guess they are better than the 3-win team.
Well, they are.
Play well.
Well, we know they're better than they're going to be better because their best player hasn't played yet.
Yeah, Jarek Martin's been out the whole season so far.
And he is, I don't think there's a lot of debate. I mean, he was, what I saw of him last year, saw him the 3 times they played Barren, and then I saw him in the regional tournament and so forth. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was almost unguardable at times. So they're going to get a big boost whenever he comes back. But, you know, the win against Allen was a good win for them because Allen's better than they were last year.
Oh, yeah.
Glasgow won 74-64 last Friday. Jalen Bradley had 27. Now, listen, he made 16 free throws. He was 16 out of 22 from the line, so you don't see that a lot. Quinn Nunley had 16. He was 4 out of 5 from 3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those 2 kids were obviously played well against Allen, and that's a good win. I mean, oddly, right now, I don't know if people were predicted Glasgow being shorthanded would be undefeated so far. They're 2-0 in the district, and and that's right now they got a slight upper hand. Right, Allen is 0-2.
Right,
and then Barron's 2-1. Warren East is
1-2.
1-2.
Yeah, because I mean Glasgow had that 75-71 win over Warren East, and so it kind of makes that Friday night game an interesting game because it's what we talked about. Even though Allen is better than they were last year, clearly they're still the 4th best team.
Fair,
because you know. You have Bratcher and Caleb Prince for Warren East. Those guys can really do some damage to you. Barren has turned out. You know, you got Jackson Reese back. Tate Spillman's been playing extremely well. And then, of course, you mentioned Jalen Bradley. And I'm told that Jarek Martin plans to play on Friday night. Now, he's going to be rusty. You know, there's no telling what kind of condition he's in physically. And that kind of stuff.
Well, the good news for Glasgow, he's going to be back.
Yeah.
You know, he's not out for the year.
Right. But so when you look at the 3 teams, Glasgow, Warren East, and Barren, they have players who can really do some damage. Allen, they have a couple of guys who are playing pretty well, but they just don't have anybody of the caliber I think I just mentioned.
The point guard that transferred from Warren East.
Yeah, Kyle Pettigo.
Yeah, he's helped them.
Yeah, he's like number 1 or 2 in the state in free throw percentage or something like this. It's kind of fascinating, but yeah, he has definitely helped them a lot. But now we got a real dogfight, I think, in that 1, 2, 3 spot. And Barren and Glasgow will play this Friday, and then they'll play 2 weeks from now. I think it's the 24th of January at Barren.
Yeah, hopefully we get the game in. I think they will. I mean, some more weather's supposed to come in Friday and so forth, but it's a game I think they should get in. It's at Glasgow. That's a tough place to play. You know, to be it's a slight advantage, I would think. You know, I'm not big into home court advantages too much in high school because you take your crowd with you. But there are certain places I think are harder than other places.
Yeah, and then, I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's going to be fascinating. The region as a whole, though, is kind of playing out as we expect. Warren Central suddenly is the best team in the region, I think. And Bowling Green's,
even though they lost a ton of players, they've found some.
They manufacture players over there. They find
players, and they're good. They're well coached too. I mean,
they are.
It's despite people moving in or whatever, they're well coached. Bowling Green is. I mean, right now it's still it's same old in the boys region. They're 1-2 Bowling Green and Warren Central, and everybody else is.
Yeah.
Fighting behind them.
I was impressed with how Greenwood performed on Friday night, though. I thought they played real well, and so. You never look. It's the only school. Greenwood is actually the only school over the last 22 years that's prevented either Warren Central or Bowling Green from winning the region. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but they are the only ones. So when they have good years, they're the ones who can slide in there and steal the region, I guess, depending on how you look at it. And then the Gouverneur Colonels, they had everybody playing. They played a lot better the last 2 or 3 games. And they were supposed to play tonight against Greene County in a All-A/18th District showdown. They lost at Greene County a couple of weeks ago before Christmas.
And had players suspended for both teams.
Yeah, both teams have kind of took a little bit of a lump, despite the fact that Greene County got up. They're ranked like number 8 or 10 or whatever in the state right now. But anyway, Gouverneur played a few games with some missing people because of the altercation in that game. But, yeah, so now that game's been moved to Tuesday night, and we'll see. What happened last year was Gouverneur won the game at their – no, actually, I think last year they won at Greene and lost at home to Greene. So we'll see if they can split the difference again this year. In my estimation, if they're going to win the 5th region, they have to do it this year because there are no Russell Williams on the bench waiting for them. And
win the region or win the Class A? Which one are you talking about, for Gouverneur?
Yeah. I think this is the year they have to do both of them because
that's a high standard.
Well, it is, and maybe that's why Greene County found some people from Philadelphia, but they knew this was the year they had to stop them.
How about win a district first? Of course, you can make the argument if you win the 18th district, you're probably favorite to win the region, right?
I would say. I mean, there's
or
probably
Adair's the only other. That's probably those 4.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Adair and maybe Taylor County.
Don't think so.
Yeah, so I mean, there's outside of that 18th district. You're right. There's only 2 or 3 other teams that even
north, but
that are sniffing at the idea of winning the region. So I mean, it's kind of like that. So yeah, if they want to win the region, they got to win the district. But if they're going to do it, I think they need to do it this year because Russell Williams is a 6'5" guy who can defend and shoot and run the floor, and those guys don't grow on trees. And he's the only senior. And I know Jalen Crane is the best player, best scorer on the team. But you just can't replace a guy like that, The only
thing I would say, though, is that Adair, Greene, LaRue loses a lot of players.
They do. That would be the difference. Depending on,
But you never know in high school
Philadelphia
today.
pipeline
High
these
school is
days.
like college. You don't know who's coming and going.
The transfer portal is wide open beginning sometime in April, I guess. But anyway, anything else on the boys' high school basketball you can think of?
Nope. I just hopefully get the games in this week.
Yep. All right, this is a Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag here on 104.7 and 103.1 WCLU Radio. James Brown, John Butler. We're going to talk a little bit about some girls basketball and, again, 15th district related stuff. The Barren County Trojanettes have proven to be the best team in the district. The interesting thing was when I did the preseason interview with Piper, we discussed the fact that this was like the first year in, I don't know, probably 6 years that Barren and Bowling Green weren't picked 1 and 2 in the region in preseason. And it was kind of interesting because, it was a new position for her. And after the interview, she said, I feel really good about our chances this year. And the first couple of games, they were, you could tell they were trying to figure themselves out, I think. They didn't shoot the ball particularly well. They defended as they usually do, I think. But, the game against Elizabethtown, they actually did. But since then, it looks like she's really kind of figured out the formula of her rotation for the most part, who's playing where, doing what. And their defense has been fantastic in every game they've played, I do believe. And, it's an interesting mixture of players she has, because she has a couple of freshmen who are playing well. She has a couple of sophomores who are playing well. She has a couple of seniors who are playing well. And I just think it's an interesting mixture that she has with that team, John.
It is. They're 10-2. They went 2-1 over Christmas down in Florida. And like I said, I don't know much about what happened down there. But it is a good mixture. I mean, you have the experience of Katie Geralds and Katie Elmore, and they're coming back. And those girls have played for a long time, to be honest with you. I mean, they're seniors, and they've either started or had serious playing time for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And both of them are averaging like 9.5 points a game and so forth.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they both were on the varsity roster when they were in the 8th grade,
right,
I think.
Yeah. But I'm talking about really contributing.
Yeah,
That's
right.
true. You have Atkinson and Ashley, who started last year, who brings some. Well, they're all good defensive players. Atkinson, Elmore, and Geralds are all really, really good defensive players. They're long and so forth. They're quick enough to keep most people in front of them and so forth. So they're good defensive players. You have the addition of Slagle from Glasgow, who's given them a consistent, a more consistent outside shooter. You have Wilson and Bragg off the bench, who gives them size, and they can use that when they need to. And they're also, that length that really adds defensively. Then you have Shelby Bird, the last one that I've mentioned, and who's averaging close to 14, 15-point games.
Yeah.
Who is capable of exploding and this is what I really like about him, because I do think you had to have that player who, when the game's close, who can get their own shot off, that you don't have to call a play to get a shot, who can create her own, and she's capable of doing that. And she had 30, I think, against 29 or 30 against E-Town, and she's capable of big games. And I think you need those type of players, to be honest with you. Those players that no matter how well they're scouted, they can still score, and they've got that, and it makes Barren. I think the legitimate number 2 team. Now, listen, there's a gap between Franklin and Barren and everybody else. I'll be honest with you. I mean, Franklin is probably playing top 5 in the state right now, top 10 for sure. I mean, the Cawthorn kid is just having a fantastic year, and they're blowing out everybody around here.
Yeah.
So that's good. The Barren got a good win against East on Friday. It's close, 42-36. I never thought they was going to lose. They kind of had a 10-point lead for most of the game, but But I think Bird had 14 and Elmore had 12 or 11, and Ashley Atkinson had 9. They had kind of similar, where they have a lot of people sometimes contributing 5, 6, 7 points. But that puts them at Barren now at 3-0 in the district. They swept East, already beaten Allen. Though Allen is still dangerous. But then they have Glasgow on Friday.
Yeah, the thing that's gotten interesting, another player that I think stands out is Mahalia Burton, even though she doesn't really show up in the box score.
I was going to mention her. That's exactly right. She's a freshman. I like how she moves. She's got a grace about her too. She kind of. She's athletic, but she's not out of control. She's just a freshman, and I think she's going to develop into a really good guard throughout the year. She didn't have to do a lot,
right?
Because you got Shelby, you got some of the other players who can take away some of that ball handling pressure. But she's another good player I can see her being down the road a really good player.
Yeah, it's an interesting mixture with the 2 freshman guards, because technically Burton and Slagle are both point guards, but Slagle's more of a scoring point guard and Burton's more of a distributing point guard, and you can play them together, I guess, because of that. And then, as you mentioned, Bird, I mean, she can get her own shot, and then she can also defend, and she can handle the ball as well. So it's like everybody they have on the floor can handle the ball. And going back to the 2 wins they've had against Warren East, it's not just that they've won the games. They've really just limited Warren East from being able to score. And Warren East was one of the teams everybody thought was going to be real dangerous this year.
It's not a great matchup for East.
Yeah.
Glasgow doesn't match up very well with Barren either, and it's because of the size.
Yes.
Warren East is not very big, and Barren, though, it's not, they're not huge, though, Bragg is 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah.
But Barren across the board, except for Schlegel, they just have good length and so forth. And if, they've got several kids in that 5'8", 5'11", that and size is a huge factor in girls basketball.
Yeah.
It's hard to shoot oversized. Not just high school, college level too. I see it all the time. And Barron's length and they do a good job of staying in front. As long as they don't overextend and so forth, they're hard to score against.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Avery Moore. I mean, you mentioned Allen County. Avery Morris had a heck of a game against Glasgow on Friday because Glasgow was in the game. I think they were down by 21, I think, at halftime, something like that, and they came back and got within 8. And
Morris had 44, right?
Yeah.
42. She had 42 points.
Yeah.
That's the guard from Allen.
Yeah, and so she was a one-person wrecking crew, and that's kind of the difference right now in this district. East has to score by everybody doing everything right on the team. They've got some good shooters. But everything has got to come out of either getting turnovers or running good sets or something. They don't really have a person who's just going to score on you. And Glasgow has a person that can get her shot in Cynthia Austin, but she's not really an outside threat, so a lot of her attacks are off the dribble. And they also, in order to get good shots, they got to run everything perfectly. Meanwhile, Barren, as you mentioned, Shelby Bird, she can score points just off the dribble, and obviously Avery Morris can as well. We knew she's capable. A lot of times when we've seen her in these district games, she's not really put up the numbers you would expect her to. But she came alive against Glasgow on Friday night and turned what looked like a game that Glasgow was getting closer and closer into a blowout in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the final score was 70-52. And for Glasgow to put 52 up, that's better.
Right.
Because the Achilles heel so far at Glasgow is their inability to score.
Yeah, they've had games where they've shot 23% from the floor, and you just can't do that and win.
And we've mentioned that, so I don't want to just continue to harp on that. They're 2-10. They have lost 7 straight, but I do see signs of improvement. They down in the they went 0-4 down in South Warren tournament, but they played good teams. And Greene County is one team they played. I think they played South Warren. They played some other decent teams down there. But
Central Hardin.
Their scores, other than a couple, started to improve a little bit. They didn't score much against Greene, but they're starting to score a little bit better. Against Allen, Kayla Kirkpatrick, she had 23, made a bunch of free throws. A team that struggles shooting free throws, she shoots her free throws well, so that was good. Cynthia Austin down in the South Warren tournament, I think against Central Hardin, maybe she had 20-something down there.
Yeah,
she had 13 against Allen. I said all year that Kirkpatrick and Austin, they need to be double-figure scores for Glasgow to have a legitimate shot to beat decent teams. Those 2 kids have to score. Jordy Goodman had 12 points. She made, I think, 3 threes against Allen. So they hung in there and they competed, and that's something they have done. It's hard to get kids, I think, to play consistently hard when you're not making shots because it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But Glasgow has continually tried to defend. Their effort has been good. It's just putting the ball in the basket. And that's oftentimes frustrating for teams, for players, and for coaches when you can't score. It's just frustrating,
right?
Because that's the name of the game, and that's kind of what you want to do is put the ball in the basket. But they have shown signs of improvement in that aspect. They have a big game against Barren. I mentioned earlier it's not a great matchup for Glasgow because Barren's size will make it really difficult to score.
Yeah.
But they are getting better, and I do admire how well they continue to try despite the fact they're not scoring.
I keep forgetting just how young they are as a team. They have one senior, and sometimes that doesn't matter, but then I forget that Kayla Kirkpatrick and Jordy Goodman, I think, are both still sophomores. And, they got several other players. And every time I look at their roster, I'm like, surely they're not that young because they've been having to play them for so long at this point. I mean, 2 or years or more.
Yeah, they're young but experienced.
Yeah. And
so it's one of those deals.
But I do think that size thing, like we were talking about with Warren East, is one of the struggles they have at the moment. They don't really have an inside presence that they can either score with, or they struggle rebounding. They're having the team rebound. And then, if you're playing teams that are, can guard your guards and have size, I mean, it's as you said, I mean, it's just the rules of basketball. It's hard.
It is. A lot of teams are that way anymore, though. Even teams that have size sometimes don't throw it in there.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like, what a good post player can do for you is they can get you some easy baskets at times.
Yeah.
Offensive rebound and things like that. And a lot of teams don't have it. They just
Right.
they don't have the post players to do that and so forth. But that's what a good post player can when you're struggling shooting from the outside, it's, that they can open up things on the inside.
Yeah, and certainly guards don't have post moves anymore.
Well,
not many.
Yeah, I mean, you can post guards up. Most teams don't.
Right.
But you can definitely do that, but I don't see a lot of that happening.
No. Meanwhile, Franklin Simpson, as you mentioned at the top of this, they beat Warren East by 42 on Saturday, John.
Yeah, no, they're the best team.
That's a scary proposition.
Yeah, they're the best team. Then they've increased their schedule. They knocked off a good Henderson County team, who's in the top 20. They handled them, and they've played in that good Bullet East tournament. They went 3-1. I think their only loss was in the finals to, I think, Cooper maybe.
Yeah.
And beat some good teams. So they are handling this year. They're preparing this year for postseason success much better than they did last year.
Yeah, last year they were surprised at how well their record was.
Well, their schedule may have been made before they got Cawthorn.
Oh, well, it certainly was.
And Cawthorn transferred from Russellville. So
yeah.
I don't know when she transferred, but their schedule
it was in the summer.
So their schedule was already made. That's correct.
Yeah,
she's a difference maker.
Yeah.
You take her off, Franklin Simpson's probably 500.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and that's just the way it is. I mean, it's and I don't blame her for leaving Russellville to go to Franklin either, to be honest with you. I'm not saying anything about that, but in basketball, unlike football, one player can make a difference in 10, 11 wins.
Do you we mentioned the Barrens probably the second best team in the region right now? You believe
I think so? I think it's them, and I think it's Metcalf.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to throw Bowling Green out, though the loss of their guard, Wardlow, has really, really hurt them.
Yeah.
I do think it's probably those two, and then I'd throw in I would still put Allen, probably fifth.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as long as Avery Morris can potentially put up 40 points on somebody, which she's not going to do,
Todd
every
Spencer
game.
was, had a great run last year.
Yeah.
And, they lost one of their better players, but their best player's back, so, I won't necessarily throw them out. Cumberland's having a good year, but I don't think they're a regional tournament threat.
Right. All right. Anything else about the girls' basketball before we get out of here for this break?
No, I think it's, like I said, hopefully get the games in this week. We can go watch the doubleheader on Friday between Barren and Glasgow.
All right. This is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag. I'm here with John Butler. We're going to, I don't know, are we going to complain about the college football playoffs? We're going to join that crowd? Or are we going to talk about the things that have been good? Because the games have not been, except for one, and even that one was lucky that it was good. And when I say good, I mean at least it got to overtime, and we got to meet a new player we had never met before because he played at Arizona State.
You're talking about Texas and Arizona State.
Yeah, Scatterboo. Everybody's now favorite college football player. But
yeah, he was fantastic.
He was indeed. But the rest of these games have just not been good. A couple of things have happened in every game, and one of those things is one team has gotten a 2-touchdown lead, I think, at some point in time in the first half. And then the other team either just has not responded after taking that punch, or they just never really caught up. The one exception is Arizona State against Texas, and I don't know. It seems the way they rated these things by guaranteeing a conference champion a first-round bye has been a problem. Playing the first-round games at a home site.
But they're going to keep that.
They are going to keep that. But I think the thing is, so then the first-round bye people really didn't get a home game. It was a neutral game in one of the traditional, big-time bowls to try to keep them in the mix.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but what has happened is it's just not been compelling football.
I think part of it is the quarterback play has not been very good.
No, it has
There's not a dynamic quarterback. There's not of the teams in the playoffs. There's probably not. There's none of the first round draft picks, potential ones, or even maybe the Oregon. He may be. Maybe that's the exception. Maybe he'll be a Gabriel. Maybe he's a first round. I'm not really for sure.
Yeah.
But the quarterback play has not been very good. By far, Ohio State has outplayed everybody. I mean, they dominated Oregon. I mean, that was a real impressive performance against Oregon. They dominated their first game against SMU, but that wasn't that big of a surprise. But the win, I think Ohio State beat SMU, was it? Or was it? Okay.
I believe that's
but
correct.
The win against Oregon, go to fly out the West Coast and Rose Bowl and play that. That's the most impressive win that I can remember. The Notre Dame win over Georgia was, Notre Dame, in my opinion, I mean, that's a good win. Obviously, anytime you beat Georgia, two-time champion, even though they not last year, but 2 out of the last 3 years. That's always a good win. However, Georgia's playing with a backup quarterback. He didn't play great.
Right.
Penn State only threw it. Now you can now listen. It's fair to say they didn't need to throw it, but the quarterback only threw it for like 90 yards. I don't think that's necessarily a recipe for winning. But they still defensively, there's no question Notre Dame is really good defensively. Can they beat Penn State? Yeah, because I'm not impressed with Penn State either. The same situation. I don't think either team has dynamic quarterbacks. Definitely Notre Dame will probably – I haven't seen the line yet, but Notre Dame's going to be 4 or 5, maybe 6-point favorite. I hadn't even seen the line, so they're going to be expected to win. It still would be remarkable, a team that loses to Northern Illinois. It's going to be in the finals of the college playoffs. But I think Ohio State will beat Texas. Texas was they were fortunate, unfortunate, then fortunate again.
Right.
They jumped out on Arizona State, and then all of a sudden Arizona State storms back. And then give Texas credit, 4th and 14 in overtime.
Yes.
And the quarterback, Quinn Early, who I'm not a huge fan of, he made the play. I think he made a check down call at the line and hit the guy who's wide open. But he made the play, and then in overtime, the other overtime, he made 2 back-to-back plays as well. Did he play great the whole game? No, but when it mattered the most, he stepped up and played big time.
His thing is he has the experiance of playing all this time, and it finally showed up.
When he's calm, I'll give him that.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State is better than Texas.
Oh, yeah.
But there's can Ohio State bounce back? Not bounce back. Can they repeat? And it's hard to do that. A similar performance as they had against Oregon.
Right. They had motivation differently to play Oregon because of the loss during the regular season that people think they got cheated.
But they're in the semifinals.
Yeah. I mean, they showed up motivated.
So can they continue this motivation? Can they continue this play? I mean, you're in a semifinal, so surely. But there is, like in horse racing, when a horse runs the best race of their life, the next race, sometimes they'll say that horse could bounce. You can't get back to that same level. You're going to drop. And you see this in sports too. After you play a top game, the next game, can you come back and play similar? They may not have to play that good to still beat Texas, but they're going to have to play good.
Right.
But to me, Ohio State, what I've seen so far in the playoffs, has played better than anybody, even Notre Dame, who's defensively been really good. I think it's going to be Ohio State, Notre Dame in the finals. That's personal. And it's probably going to be Texas, Penn State. But I think my gut will be Notre Dame, Ohio State.
I think Ohio State will win the national title, and I think they will stomp Texas, and I actually think they will stomp Penn State in the championship. And the reason I say that is –
So you're saying Ohio State, Penn State?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's like one of those things, like the year that Michigan and Ohio State were going to play each other in the national title game, but then, they got derailed. But it's more like when Alabama played LSU that year in the national title game, and they had that fantastic regular season game, and the title game was an absolute dud. And kind of what seems to have happened is Ohio State, they spent all this money, NIL money, for these players that they have. I mean, that was the big news over the summer. How they had spent more than anybody could ever imagine for a shot at winning a national title. And for most of the year, they were okay. They were good, but they were not as good as the talent, week in and week out. And it's like whatever happened, maybe the loss to Michigan, that 13-10 loss that really got them close to being eliminated from being in this playoff scenario.
Well, they would have been if it wasn't for a 12 team.
Yeah, I mean, if things would have gone slightly differently in a couple of other conference championship games, they wouldn't have even been here. And so they showed up in this thing with a different level of motivation, and they really – and I mean, I don't think it's the coaching. I think the players have shown up with a desire to prove that they were better than the two losses they had, because the two losses they had were like utter disasters in how they went. And they've played like a team that's with a chip on its shoulder. And I know, coaches a lot of times they're like, well, that kind of stuff doesn't exist. But sometimes it's not what the talent's level is equalized for the most part. You're at this point, it's which side of the talent is more focused and more prepared and executing more precisely than the other side. It's not the talent gap, it's the execution gap. And that's the deal. They've been playing so well is the part that's been impressive to me.
Well, they've been playing so well for the last two games.
Yes, well, that's what I'm saying. They got here and they've been playing so well. Now,
two games they've been playing, but they have been. I think they have the best team. I don't know who's the best quarterback out of the four. I'll be honest with you. I really don't.
Is there one?
Well, I think there's probably one that's better than the other ones. The Ohio State quarterback's playing really well. He played great against Oregon.
Yeah.
And so forth. But we'll see. It's down to the final. I mean, it's compelling. I think both games will be good games. I think we finally got to the point where you're going to see two good games this weekend, right?
Right.
So I think there'll be two good games.
One's on Friday, one's on Saturday.
Yeah, I think you're going to see two good games, and I
think it's the way it works out.
And we'll see. It's still, we expanded the playoffs, but it's still, two Big Ten, one SEC now in Texas, and one independent / ACC. If you like the ACC, you'll put Notre Dame there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the NFL playoffs get started this weekend, and I tell you what, the Lions impressed me on Monday night. I mean, on Sunday night when they beat the Vikings, they have 12, 13 players, defensive side of the ball, who are out or have been injured.
Yep.
And yet they shut down Minnesota's offense, and I just thought that was an impressive run. When they get on you, they will absolutely punish you. They look like, to me, the best team in the NFC.
They've been Philadelphia, but I think they're the best.
Yeah. I have more faith in their coaching staff than I do Philadelphia's to come up with things to win games.
Well, I like Dan Campbell. He's done a fantastic job. And the one thing that you get with Dan Campbell with Detroit is certainty.
Yeah.
They have a formula. Mm-hmm. It's a real interesting formula where they forego a lot of field goals and they go for it on fourth down more than anybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's not that they go for it at that time. The philosophy is they know it beforehand. The offensive coordinator knows it. It's a lot different knowing that you have 4 downs to pick up 10 yards than 3 downs.
Right.
It gives you more creativity when it's 3rd and 5 or 6. Hey, I may just run the ball because I know we're going to get another shot at it.
Right.
And they have great faith in Campbell. They have great faith in their quarterback, Jared Goff. And I agree. I do think Detroit, to me, they are the biggest favorite to get to the Super Bowl. I think the AFC teams have better teams in the AFC overall than the NFC, but the Lions can definitely win it all. And if I was a betting person, Detroit, I think, is the safest one because I think they're going to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, and I do think on the AFC side, between the Bills and the Ravens and the Chiefs, then I do think any of the three of them can get there this particular year. And now the Bills and the Ravens have not managed to get through the Chiefs yet, but maybe, this might be the year.
Could be.
So it'll be I think the Super Bowl could be a pretty interesting Super Bowl because I think this year we will definitely have two good teams in it, and they'll both have whichever two teams, they will be ones that know what their identity is. They'll get there and do their thing. Anyway, all right, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Welcome back to the Brown Sports Bag here on WCLU Radio 103.7 and 103.1 and 104.7. Transcribe some numbers there. I think I'm developing dyslexia as I age, John. I look at words sometimes and I put just two letters in the wrong spot. I don't know what's going on.
I wish I could help you, but I can't.
That's all right. It's probably just a focus thing more so than anything. Brain trying to do too many things. Speaking of doing too many things, let's talk about, that really wasn't a great segue. Anyway, let's talk about Louisville doing great things in the ACC. They are 3-1 in the ACC. Good wins over North Carolina and Virginia last week. You were high on this team in terms of talent they had and the coach.
Well, the only thing that sidetracked them are the injuries.
Yeah.
They lost their second-best player and arguably their third-best player, and they're out for the year. They did get one player back who broke his arm after the first game. He came back and played against Virginia and actually had double figures. But they're very well. They're well coached in terms of they have a culture and they have a kind of a process that you can watch how they play and you can go, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
They shoot a lot of threes, but they're a really good rebounding team as well, and they have an outstanding point guard. Kentucky and Louisville are blessed with these two senior transfer guards, and this Chucky Hepburn, who transferred from Wisconsin, is just a tremendous player who can almost dominate the game offensively and defensively. The win against Virginia, though Virginia is not as good as they've been, it's the first win in Virginia in 20 years.
Uh-huh.
The win against North Carolina was a huge win because North Carolina is still North Carolina. I mean, they're not quite as good as they've been, but they've got some good wins. So that was just a great win against those two. And they got a top 20 team coming in tomorrow to Louisville and Clemson, who made a deep run last year in the NCAA tournament. Clemson did, and they've got most of their players back, including one of Louisville. No, I'm sorry, that's a North Carolina State transfer. But Clemson made a big run last year, got to the final 8 last year before they bailed out. So. Louisville's playing good.
So, I mean, how do you think the ACC shapes up just out of the
ACC's down.
Yeah.
Duke and Clemson. Duke is a legit Final Four contender. Clemson is really good, but the ACC overall is down. Louisville has every opportunity to rack up a lot of wins. Their out-of-conference schedule is really good for Louisville. I mean, Kentucky and they played several good teams out of conference.
Right.
Got a good win against Indiana and so forth. So, I think Louisville has a chance to put up a number where they would be considered for an NCAA tournament if they continue on with the progress they're making.
Now, do you buy the hype that the SEC is a loaded men's basketball league this year?
I don't think it's hype. I think it's true. I do. I think Tennessee's undefeated. They're number one in the country. They're for real. I think Alabama and Auburn are definitely for real.
Yeah.
I love Alabama's team. I like Alabama's team better than I like Auburn's team, but they're both legit top 10. I think Kentucky's definitely a top 10 team.
Yeah.
Florida proved to me that they're legit. So those right there, and I haven't even mentioned Texas A&M and Mississippi State and Ole Miss. Ole Miss is really good, very well coached.
Yeah.
I haven't even mentioned those guys. So,
right.
Yeah, no, I think I don't think it's overhyped. I think it's been a reversal. The football conference ended up not being as good,
right?
But the basketball, I think it's by far the best conference.
Yeah, SEC fans. Suddenly, the SEC is a basketball conference.
And Kentucky was, they played one of the best. That's one of the best games I've seen in a long time in their win against Florida. Now, they've had epic battles with Florida throughout the year.
Right.
106-100. In which both teams, they just made plays. And their point guard, Butler, the transfer from San Diego State, he is a big-time winner.
Yeah.
Big-time winner.
That was, I'm sure people, as that game went on, tuned into it.
Oh, it was a great game. I mean, it was shot-making after shot-making after shot-making, 106-100. And it's not like defensively, you're just like an NBA All-Star team. The game just let them score. They were trying, they were guarding, but it was just elite offensive scoring.
Yeah, so I mean that's impressive, and as you mentioned, I mean with all the other teams in the conference, I mean it's going to be a dogfight of a conference this year, and there's no telling how many teams can get into the tournament from the SEC just based on the fact of the strength of the conference itself.
Right now, it's probably double digits.
Yeah, it's replaced the ACC as the double-digit get-in kind of conference. And then WKU took one on the nose from FIU, 85-66.
It's coming off a great come from behind. They're down 17 to Liberty and came back and beat Liberty 71-70. Then threw a bad clunker in against FIU, who's not the greatest team in the world, but you play in front of about 100 people right. At FIU. Nobody goes to those games.
I mean, Florida International is what do they call it? Transient kind of school. I mean, I don't even know.
You just look at the highlights, and there is nobody.
Yeah,
nobody there.
Yeah, it's got to be hard to play in a game like that. So yeah, it'll be an interesting season as we go forward. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the Brown Sports Bag today here on WCLU Radio 103.1 and 104.7. You can catch the show online on WCLUradio.com/Brown Sports Bag, and we'll be back next week at 4 o'clock.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine